Indian film star and producer Anil Kapoor, internationally recognized for his work in the award-winning Slumdog Millionaire, unites with CNN's Freedom Project. Passionate about ending modern-day slavery, Kapoor goes with our cameras to a small village in his home country of India. A village that is not what it seems on the surface. The people that live here have a dark secret. To be born a girl in this town means your destiny is determined, and your future is bleak. Because to be a girl in this town means you are trapped by tradition.
India, with its 1.21 billion people, is the second most populous country in the world. Delhi and Mumbai are the largest cities in the country, with Delhi being the capital. But don't let this bustling city fool you. Indian culture is very diverse. Steeped in rich tradition and home to some of the world's most ancient civilizations. Every minute, approximately 51 babies are born in India. And with a population this large, poverty is unavoidable. For many, eking out an existence is nearly impossible. Hundreds of millions of people here live on less than 88 rupees or $2 a day. Destitution breeds desperation. Lack of opportunity and education leads millions of Indian women and children to the sex industry, making India one of the biggest hubs for sex trafficking in Asia. To understand how the sex trade is allowed to flourish, you have to look back at our culture and heritage. And that is where our story begins. Everything started with that, called the Devdasis. Now, what is Devdasi? Dasi is like, Dasi means slave, and Dev means God. So that means slave of God. And who are the gods? The gods were the priest who worked in the temple, the superior caste. The Devdasis were the young girls, and they would devote their entire life to serve. Even sexually, they had to serve them in a way. It starts with very, 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 with all the purity. So that's what they've been brainwashed into. But ultimately, the motive and everything just becomes that it comes to sex, and that's where the entire slavery in our country, the sex thing, the sex trade, the sex slavery started thousands and thousands of years ago. It's so primitive, but it still prevails. I became involved with an organization called Plan India. Yes, ma'am. They are on the front lines, trying to protect children from abuse and exploitation. They rescue, educate, and rehabilitate exploited women and children in 11 states across India. I began working with them as their goodwill ambassador a few years ago. I got so involved in my family for so many years, and then I realized one day, I said, what am I doing? I'm not doing anything. I've not done anything. I'm constantly thinking about myself, thinking about my wife, thinking about my children, and my future. I said, what about people outside? So that's the time I got connected with. I think Plan India came at the right time in my life. So whenever they need me, I said, use me as much as you can. You have any idea who are the people who are really encouraging it and the people who are discouraging it? Human slavery in today's world, modern world, it's unacceptable. It's unpardonable. We should try our best to do whatever we can to eradicate it completely. In this meeting, we are discussing going back to a place I visited about 2 years ago, a district called Bharatpur. So first of all, geographically, it's situated in such a way that there are the highways. Of course, it's close to Delhi, so one of the reasons is that. And of course, when the trafficking takes place, it becomes easier because it's close to the city, as well as the 5 to 6 highways which crisscross Bharatpur, this village we are talking about. That's one of the reasons that it's important. It's about 2.5 hours from Delhi, and it's a village which is, of course, is very very poor. This village is, I think, it's really sad. The whole, you can see that people are illiterate, they're not educated, they're poor, the hygiene is not good, and there is no, you can see that it's a it's as if there is no attention being paid by the government to this village, which has been let go. For me, it was kind of a shock. Somewhere I feel all over the world, the entire thinking is that human trafficking and girls who are human trafficked, children who are human trafficked are either they are forced into it, or they're drugged into it, or they're hypnotized into it. But over here, it's a tradition. There are more men in the village, more males in the village. The reason, because the women in the house and the girls in the house, as a tradition, go and work and as sex workers. Now, this is something which is very very shocking. It's, for me, living in this country, I'm shocked. I can imagine how the people are going to react all over the world. There is a village where where it's a tradition, and it's accepted by the society that when the girl is born, and when there is and is accepted by the parents and the brothers and sisters, and and they are happily traffic their child, who goes and goes to the city and works. 2 years ago, when I visited, almost every woman in this area was sent into prostitution or sex slavery. It was clear we must change the mindset of the people in this town. They had to understand there are other options. Now I'm back to this mysterious place where selling your own daughter into the sex trade is not only commonplace, but as natural as sending them out to play. Two years ago, I was welcomed with pageantry, and this time was no different. Little did I know that the young girl who was front and center at the welcoming ceremony was actually the daughter of the woman I would soon meet, and hers would be a story that would haunt me forever. Ceremony is important in the Indian culture. In this town, when a young girl enters puberty, a celebration is thrown to introduce her as a woman. But she is far from being a woman. Often, she is as young as 10 or 11 years old. Now, there is this traditional ceremony which happens in this village, and I think all the villages where human trafficking takes place, and where the tradition is there, where it's an accepted thing in the society, where when the girls come of age, they have this ritual, whereas they called in Nathani Utarna. Nathani means nose ring. It's nose ring, and they take out the Nathani. That means the girl is a virgin, and now she's ready to get into this business. She's grown up enough. Actually, they're all minors. There is celebration when the ritual takes place, and she goes into this big dirty world, of being trafficked and exploited and used and raped, and all the possible worst things happen to her in her life. When I was here before, this rite of passage was seen as tradition, a duty, a way to honor and support the family. My hope is this time I will see more awareness, more education. Acha, now I want everybody out. After the welcoming ceremony, I met a group of ladies. I noticed one was less open with her story. I wanted to find out why. When she really started speaking and she became comfortable, she opened up. अब अकेली हैं? अच्छा अच्छा, तो यहाँ कौन आपके पूरी परिवार है यहाँ आपका?
यहाँ पे मम्मी है, भाई भाभी है, भाई खत्म हो गया ना, साल ही है।
अच्छा, ठीक है, तो अपना दिल्ली आपको अच्छा लगता है जाना वहाँ दिल्ली?
अच्छा तो नहीं लगता है मगर क्या करें, बच्चों के लिए तो करना पड़ता है।
अच्छा
जो हमने किया वो हम नहीं चाहते कि हमारे बच्चे करें आगे चल के।
अच्छा। तो कितने साल पहले गए थे आप दिल्ली?
हो गए 20-25 साल।
20-25 साल हुए। सही, बिल्कुल आप ये तो चाहते हैं कि आपके साथ जो हुआ बच्चों के साथ नहीं हो, और आपको ये भी कोशिश करनी चाहिए कि दूसरों के बच्चों के साथ भी नहीं हो। सही बात
किसी के साथ भी ना
है,
हो
किसी
ऐसा।
के साथ नहीं। She has been working as a sex worker, and she's been sending money regularly because she has to look after the family. And after when she spoke about her family and her children and everybody and all what is happening, so I said, can I, go and see her house and meet her family? She said yes, of course. She was quite surprised that I wanted to go to her house, but I said let's go. And then I went to the house, and oof, I couldn't believe the house, and there were animals, there were cows, and there were children, and there were flies, and there was no sanitation. It was, completely, as you say, unlivable. And the whole thing is, I said, how can anybody live in this kind of condition? But I sat down over there and I met each member of the family, and then, of course, I saw the babies there, and I asked her who this baby was, and she said that she's my brother's daughter. And I said, what are the brothers? The brother's dead. And now, can you imagine the irony of the situation? The brother forced her into this business or convinced her to go to the business, and now the brother is dead, and she's now looking after the children of the brother. Look at the sacrifice. Look at the kind of hardships and the kind of life she is. And if you see her face looks dead. Her eyes are dead, her face is dead, there's no expression on her face. I think she's gone through so much when she was talking. I was watching that. I said, is there any emotion when she's talking? She was completely emotionless. And then, of course, then I saw this old lady coming, and I was introduced to her as her mother. Namaste. And of course, I started speaking to the mother, which was a very difficult for me to do that, but I had to speak to her to know exactly how was she aware when this happened, when her daughter in front of her eyes was trafficked. And of course, she says no. याद नहीं है, मुझे बताना चाहती हूँ। और आपको तो पता होगा ना, वो भूल गई हैं और वो that thing I couldn't handle, and she broke down. I could feel that somewhere she is so traumatized, and the trauma has not left her. It's just not left her. And after that, I could see that every word she spoke, she couldn't speak a single word after that, and she just got up and left. And I could imagine what this whole family has gone through. Then I realized the young girl from the welcoming ceremony is part of this family. She's Priya's daughter. And of course, I saw the positive side of it. We went for the welcome. She was singing, and she had a lovely face. And I had spoken to her that she was the one who was the hope of this family. She was educated, that at least now there is hope that there is one member of the family who's educated and who wants to come to Mumbai to study over there. She stays in a hostel over there, and somewhere she has a dream of becoming an actress. Going to this house was I can't just forget that whole visual. It's there in my. It constantly keeps on. I can't forget the face of the mother. It's unthinkable. It's unthinkable how can human beings live in this kind of situation. Priya and her family, I can't forget them. They haunt me, and I think she is the face of the tragedy of human trafficking. A man in the village explains how the tradition is passed from generation to generation. He wanted his identity concealed.
अगर किसी के घर में 4 लड़कियां हैं और 2 लड़के हैं, If there are 4 girls and 2 boys in a household, then when girls are born, the family celebrates because it's a source of income. If a boy is born, they think they study and that's it. Otherwise, they gamble, they drink, and they're up to no good. As for the girls, as soon as they become teenagers, they're emotionally blackmailed and sent to Delhi, Mumbai, Calcutta, Madras, wherever there are already some relatives working.
This is just a tip on the iceberg compared to what is happening all over the world. And of course, I'm directly connected with the country, my country, and that's what I'm trying to educate and do whatever my little bit for this cause, which is attention has not been really paid. We're talking about terrorism, we're talking about drugs, we're talking about all kinds of things which are happening with human trafficking, which is one of the most flourishing trades. It's right under the eyes. It's happening, and I think it's worse than anything else. In Bharatpur, I've heard the stories, and the blame has been widespread. Some blame tradition, others cite family pressure and extreme poverty. Regardless of the culprit, the next step is a united fight against sex trafficking. I feel it's better to speak to the people who are on the ground. Obviously, there are rules and laws, and you have to follow the law and all. But somewhere, I feel it's the cops on the ground level who have to take the initiative and who have to be motivated. So you have to motivate the people who are there on the ground level, who are there on a daily basis interacting with the people, rather than a person who's sitting on the chair. So these are the people who I feel should be checked and educated also. I'm introduced to the Chief Police Commissioner of the district.
लोगों को सबसे बड़ी बात तो है कि बच्चियों को तो खैर ठीक है एजुकेशन के हिसाब से आप
He tells me that more girls are getting an education,
उसके बाद में
but there is still a lack of jobs.
कारण क्या है धंधा वो धंधा है जिसके अंदर
The problem is they can earn a lot more money in prostitution.
आप अपनी तरफ से यहाँ क्या कर रहे हैं?
I asked what the police are doing to solve the problem. He said they tell the girls prostitution is wrong and that education is the key to having a better future.
Prevention of Immoral Traffic Act
His colleague then went on to explain, under the Prevention for Immoral Trafficking Act, a person can be jailed for up to 5 years.
Normally तो 2, 3, 4
But normally it takes 2 to 4 years to get to court, and so they just let them go. I think education is the key to solving most of the problems of this world, especially in our country, where of course the rate of illiteracy is alarming, but it's getting better. But in this village, of course, I can say that there is a progress. There is a certain kind of equality which is happening in this village, and that's thanks to education, which Plan India made it possible.
कैसा मजा आया स्कूल में? अच्छा लग रहा है? हाँ? क्या सीख रहे हो आज? क्या सीख रहे हो बताइए बेटा? आज क्या सीख रहे हो बताओ?
The most uplifting thing I witnessed on this trip was when I visited one of the 4 new schools that Plan India has built in the last 2 years. I was happy I saw so many girls in a class. There are more schools, there are more children who are being educated. And you saw one thing, that in spite of what was happening and in spite of me being who I am, still the children didn't stop studying. There was a certain kind of discipline in the schools and the classes which we went to, which I felt very good and very, very positive. And I could feel that somewhere the awareness and the education has helped. That awareness, that education, that kind of awareness also spread that, if you are into that business, that means there's something wrong with you. Earlier it was different. Now it's different. So that's where education plays a very, very important, vital instrument to be used, or way of life, that you have to be educated. Today in the school, my eyes scan the classroom. I'm looking for one face, a girl I may recognize from a picture and a letter I received after my last visit. She was my fan and she had seen my films, and of course I spoke to her and I told her, I said, if you really like me or like my films, and if you really like me for my sake, you should study. and I think that affected her, and she did study, and today she's educated, and she sent me this letter to Plan India saying that how well she's doing. So these are the small things which you can do and make a difference. She did not enter the sex trade. She chose to study instead.
नमस्ते भाई समझते हैं
Stories like hers prove there's hope for this village, hope for a better future. What I want to take away is that just give certain moments of your life, certain time of your life to see what is happening and see that in today's world, that this kind of slavery, this kind of human trafficking still exists. And what are you doing about it? Why don't you do something? Why can't you do something? You're so blessed that you're living such a comfortable, normal, beautiful life. God has been so kind, and look at the way these people are suffering and what they've gone through in their lives. They spend their entire life serving and being exploited. Something has to be done about this entire human trafficking thing, which is, I think, one of the biggest menaces of the world today. It's a very long way to go. It has to be, the government has to come into it, the police has to come into it, the politicians have to come into it, the rich have to come into it, the businessmen, the media, everybody has to come together to eradicate this entire menace of human trafficking. It's not going to happen. It has to be taken as seriously as terrorism or as drugs. It has to be. I'm a very optimistic person. I feel I live in a great country and I see a great future. And like all the diseases which were there in our country, a lot of problems, we are today, free, and we are flourishing. We are economically, we have our problems, and like all the things which we one after the other, slowly and steadily, we have overcome. And I hope we're going to overcome this also, this disease of human trafficking.